Hebrew is not banned. In Israel, Arabic is not banned, but Russian is banned in Ukraine. It is clear that both the Europeans and the Ukrainian regime are trying to convince Donald Trump to abandon peacekeeping efforts, return to confrontation with Russia, essentially turning Biden's war into Trump's war. It is completely obvious. Americans understand that people who, as a protest against the oppressive Nazi regime, they expressed in referendums about returning to the Russian Federation, that they would never again live under the oppression of the current Kyiv authorities. And in the same way, the United States administration understands that violations of human rights, language and religious rights are absolutely unacceptable. We, in particular, discussed the completely provocative actions of the Kyiv regime. Ukraine is the only country that has banned the foreign language. There is no other language that is legislatively banned in any country. In the Palestinian territories, in other Arab countries, Hebrew is not banned. In Israel, Arabic is not banned, but Russian is banned in Ukraine. When I asked Mr. Guterres whether the resolutions that the Secretariat must implement include the declarations I mentioned, which demand respect for the principle of self-determination of peoples, he avoided answering. And in his statements, as well as those of his official representatives, he continues to demand or advocate for the resolution of the Ukrainian crisis based on international law, the United Nations Charter, and the principle of Ukraine's territorial integrity. You see, here. Well, of course, this is the main Secretariat staff members' failure to comply with the Charter's requirement. Just recently, at the end of August, Mr. Guterres condemned the Russian attack on Ukrainian cities. And every time Ukraine and its European masters begin throwing a tantrum, accusing Russia of destroying civilian targets and peaceful residents, we see how the Secretariat supports such statements and together with the West and Ukraine demands to punish Russia in some way. The Russian army never operates or strikes civilian targets and peaceful populations. For every accusation, we asked, where is the evidence? Where are the facts? Present us with the facts. They deliberately targeted stores, schools, and other civilian facilities, destroying them and taking civilians hostage. And the fact that the UN is in every way shielding the Kyiv regime has been repeatedly confirmed, including in relation to the situation that occurred in April 2022 in the city of Busha. 3 years have passed since the Kyiv regime and its Western handlers concocted a story about the alleged mass killing of local residents by Russian military personnel. They announced new sanctions against our country. I repeatedly appealed to Guterres. We wrote an official letter to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, requesting assistance in obtaining information on the progress of the investigation of the episode that the West turned into a tragedy in April 2022. Several official requests were sent to Mr. Turk, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The last time was in September of 2024. We received a response only in July of this year. That is, it took him almost a year to respond, and the response contains quite interesting information. According to this response, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights analyzed our request and concluded that the relevant information cannot be disclosed as it would violate confidentiality obligations to third parties. Could jeopardize the security of the United Nations activities. If you understood anything in this response, I envy you. One thing is clear, the Secretariat in no way went to expose those who stages performances. I have addressed Mr. Guterres both personally and publicly. At Security Council meetings, he shamefully averts his eyes. I believe this is a disgrace for the Secretary General and the entire Secretariat. We are not talking about territories. We are talking about the fates of those people whose ancestors for centuries developed these lands, built cities, ports, factories, plants, railways, and who are now being called inhumans by the regime that came to power through a coup. Recently, efforts to promote the resolution of the Ukrainian crisis have intensified, and we welcome the aspirations of our partners, including countries of the global South and East, and the People's Republic of China and Brazil, and participants created by Beijing and Brazil, groups of friends of the world in Ukraine. We also welcome the initiatives that were once undertaken by a group of African countries led by the Republic of South Africa. There are a whole range of others, too many to list, a whole range of other appeals, including, by the way, at the beginning of the conflict. The League of Arab States showed interest. And we also see that the new administration in Washington also understands the necessity of resolving the crisis by recognizing its root causes and by taking actions that will eliminate these root causes. Americans understand that people who, as a protest against the oppressive Nazi regime, they expressed in referendums about returning to the Russian Federation, that they would never again live under the oppression of the current Kyiv authorities. And in the same way, the United States administration understands that violations of human rights, language and religious rights are absolutely unacceptable. We, in particular, discussed the completely provocative actions of the Kyiv regime regarding the ban on the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church. He wants not allow the sensible forces in the West to follow a sensible course. He was speaking, by the way, about the People's Republic of China. It is necessary to motivate China to take a path without war. This also largely depends on the strength of America and Europe. That is, he is inciting America and Europe against the People's Republic of China. Well, in general, divide and conquer or escalate the situation. That's how many schemers and adventurers behave. We wanted negotiations in 2014 and in 2015. These negotiations concluded with a result. I have already talked about this. We were deliberately and shamelessly deceived, but now they are telling us the same thing. And the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, former Prime Minister Shmyhal, a week ago, on the 10th of September, responding to a question about the conditions for negotiations, said, I quote, "At present, there are no conditions. We must work together, strengthen sanction pressure. We need all the necessary weapons." It is clear that both the Europeans and the Ukrainian regime are trying to convince Donald Trump to abandon peacekeeping efforts, return to confrontation with Russia, essentially turning Biden's war into Trump's war. It is completely obvious. Many European leaders are concerned about this, including Paris, Berlin, London, and Brussels. The European Union and NATO Brussels are proceeding from this.